Hello viewers, let's get straight to it. I've got 5 great and largely unknown action platformers for you today, and we start with this. The Legend of Tian is Taiwan's answer to Robin Hood. During the Japanese colonization of the island from the late 19th century, Taiwan's people were brutalized for land and taxes, and just like that famous man in green tights from Nottingham, Liao Tanding is here to take it all back, very forcefully. This is a great looking game with silky animation and a sense of movement and momentum that gives you the confidence to attack and dodge in the way you want to. I don't think I was ever once caught in a single frame of animation that wasn't intentional, and any deaths were entirely my own mistake. You start the story armed with a simple dagger, which can be replaced with new and improved weapons by paying one particular man in the street. Aside from the basic strikes, you have a regenerating stamina bar for more powerful flying kicks, uppercuts, and even Bruce Lee's very own 1-inch punch, which will send your foes flying back across the screen, and you can add more sections to this bar as you progress, giving you more combo options. Using your red sash, you can grab any weapon from any enemy, and very often the bosses, once you've softened them up with a few blows, allowing you to temporarily wield bats, swords, guns, and even rocket launchers. And then you have a choice of talismans, which can be swapped out at any time, allowing you to tailor your abilities to the current situation. You can activate a triple jump and more protection from traps, for example, to negotiate a tricky platforming section, or maybe you just need to hit harder when dealing with a boss. You can get 1 or 2 of these perks from friendly local tramps, along with several other minor combat perks when you hand over some spare change. As interesting as the story is at times, it can slow things down considerably between levels, with a ton of conversations to get through with friends, relatives and randoms in the streets. And you can't skip these sections, at least not particularly quickly. Even if you hammer the continue button, it can often be a full 10 minutes before you're back in the action again. Worse, there's a lot of pointless travel between great looking but largely empty hub areas. You'll run all the way down a road, get in a boat, run down another road, say hello to some bloke, and then have to go all the way back again just to finish a benign conversation. This isn't an RPG, you won't be asked to make any choices, which makes the whole endeavour even more pointless. And while rickshaw fast travel does eventually help things along a little bit, these interruptions could be a source of great frustration for some. And yet, even with its pacing issues, I found The Legend of Tian to be an intriguing and addictive game throughout its roughly 6-hour duration. Completionists who want to uncover every secret can probably add as many as 4 hours to that runtime. The whole setting just feels so fresh, and you always look forward to progressing to the next stage. There have been no other games before or since from the developers based in Taiwan, but I really hope that we get to see more from them because this has been a fantastic start. From the past to the future, and one of the best looking homages to the golden age of arcades you can find today. Playing as Taro Takahashi, you're part of the resistance in a radiation ravaged America, hunting down a power hungry general and his minions who rose to take control of what was left of the country. The pixel art on offer here really is top draw. Playing with the slight curve of a traditional CRT monitor, complete with scan lines, you could throw some beer on the floor, light up a cigarette and get your creepy uncle to stare at you to complete the late 80s arcade feel. The controls are simple and largely effective. You attack with your energy whip, which can temporarily be upgraded to launch projectiles. You can also deflect or eliminate a lot of incoming fire if you get your timing right. It's fun to use and the feedback is great. Your second tool is a grappling hook, which you anchor to 2 points to move horizontally, vertically or diagonally. This can be a bit fiddly at times and it's not always clear where you can attach the thing, but once you've worked it out it adds a great layer of strategy and challenge, particularly when scaling the more steep vertical stages, balancing incoming fire with the need to keep moving. The level design is the real winner here though, mixing things up nicely with all the action platformers' greatest hits like gun turrets, mobile platforms and chunky varied bosses. There's also a decent soundtrack chugging riffs at you as you proceed. It's a short game, but if you play on anything other than very easy mode it won't necessarily feel like it. Steel Assault is hard and you can expect to repeat sections over and over as you juggle precise platforming with fighting off the constantly regenerating enemies. If it really is all getting a bit too much, make sure you drop down to that base difficulty setting and experience everything the game has to offer at least once. You can always bump things up again when you're comfortable with the mechanics. I've certainly enjoyed playing through the game several times. You're not unlocking anything by completing the game, other than trophies or achievements. There are no hidden characters, levels, or 375 different endings. This is just pure arcade for those of us who love their pixel art and a good old-fashioned challenge. I first played Okinawa Rush around its release date, and since then it's been patched, rebalanced, and had some quality of life features added to make an excellent little game even better. Choosing from one of 3 characters, your job is to take down the Black Mantis clan across 5 lengthy, varied and very challenging stages, freeing hostages, avenging deaths, and trying to look as hard as possible with a ponytail. The usual. But what isn't usual is just how much depth there is to the combat here. How many times have you thought to yourself, I wish they could add more moves like one-on-one fighters have to scrolling beat-em-ups? Well, your prayers have been answered. There are very few other games of this type out there that let you combine so many attacks and make them look, sound and feel so great to pull off. Smashing through crowds of ninjas, monsters and general oddities is so nicely visceral, transitioning from straightforward punches and kicks into uppercuts, headbutts, slams, throws, or launching a fireball Street Fighter style to incinerate an entire queue of people. You can also pick up temporary weapons like swords, nunchucks and staffs. And when things get really hectic, and if you're powered up enough, you can have a right strop of a special move and clear the screen of any standard enemies. Initially the jumping can seem a bit floaty and imprecise. Each character has the ability to pounce into the air like a startled cat off a gas oven, and you'll eventually find meditation rooms that power you up so you can fly to previously unreachable levels. Once you're used to it, it becomes very freeing and enjoyable, avoiding the monotony of methodical platform climbing you might normally have to bounce through. There are a few relatively minor frustrations, chief amongst them being the spikes which can stick you up the wrong end out of nowhere, often when you've been forced to make a leap of faith. You can also occasionally find yourself overwhelmed by a group of ninjas who appear out of thin air above you. Luckily, checkpointing is good enough in the levels that if you do succumb to a cheap death, it's only a short trip back to try again. There are 7 difficulty settings for story mode, each represented by a real-world martial arts belt colour from white all the way up to the pure sadism that is black, and it's a great touch to see your character wearing these belts in action, or coloured hairband in Mei Lin's case. Every completed level will save, so you can start at the beginning of the next stage if you leave the game to return later. The arcade mode is set at 1 difficulty and gives you just 3 credits to get as far across the game as possible. You're also against the clock, with precious seconds replenished after certain manic fights. It's useful to try the arcade mode in the first instance, as a lot of the game's moves and actions are explained as you start, but only the very best gamers will get across all 5 levels here. Hats off if that's you. There are brilliant little details everywhere you look in Okinawa Rush, with tons of secrets, extra lives and weapons to find in every corner of the levels. The package is fleshed out even further with 2-player co-op and the option to add CRT scanlines for that authentic look. Now this is a great little game. Developed by the man behind Dead Cells, Nuclear Blaze is a refreshing take on action platforming. Instead of the usual wandering around, shooting and beating the living piss out of everyone, their grandmother and her dog, your job here is to quell a massive fire that's burning out of control through a mysterious nuclear facility. There's a really well told mini story here, uncovered with diary scraps and computer logs scattered throughout the bite-sized levels, and I genuinely found myself intrigued as to what had happened as I progressed. As a lone firefighter, it's your job to delve deeper and deeper into the facility, dousing fires with your increasingly capable hose. Progress for each new section is often achieved with that classic staple of 8-bit gaming, the massive floating key. In order to reach one, you might need to switch off heat valves, deactivate electrics, dodge through falling debris, and platform your way up and down levels. You carry a limited amount of water, which is replenished automatically when you're in range of one of the numerous wall-mounted water stores. It's a simple but really effective mechanic that makes you conscious of progressing methodically so you don't get caught out empty with a wall of flames suddenly building behind you. Some rare fiddly jumping aside, the mechanics here feel fantastic. It's supremely satisfying to enter a new area, completely engulfed in flames, and carefully hose your way through each room to open locked doors and switch on sprinklers. It's even better when you're against the clock, furiously running around and up and down ladders, trying to keep nuclear components cool before they blow up. This isn't a particularly difficult game, and when you do die, the penalty is only very light, transporting you back to a checkpoint at the beginning of your current section. In fact, for all you parents out there, there's a kids mode in Nuclear Blaze set across separate mini levels that does away with deaths and auto-aims your hose. All you have to do is put out the fires and scoop up some felines. The developer designed the mode for his 3-year-old son, and it's a lot less violent than most games, although you might get some quizzical looks when the little ones see the old school graphics. The only real negative I have for you is the game's length. Even for an indie, this is a short game at just 2 to 3 hours, if you stop to have a look around for missing cats and every last piece of story detail. Even so, and especially when it's on sale, give this a go if you're looking for a change of pace. Shadow Gangs follows the story of a young man who failed his Backstreet Boys audition and sets out on a quest to purge his hatred and disappointment by beating up Freddie Mercury. Not really. But the actual story is such a load of arcade bollocks that I can't be bothered to bore you with the details. Still, and as always with this type of game, that's not why we're here. We're here for one of the most challenging traditional action platformers in recent years. It's got it all. Shooting, slashing, awkward platforming, enemies jumping out of nowhere, tough bosses that need every trick you have to beat them, and best of all, it's got the weird. In any given level you might find yourself up against armoured freaks, masked weirdos shooting bubbles, dragons, and a lizard man lobbing crocodiles at you. You'll fight a ninja called Colin, and then there's the aforementioned battle with the Queen frontman, or a bloke who looks a hell of a lot like him. To aid you in your fight, you can break open capsules found throughout the levels, containing upgrades. The best one available will transform you from a simple street punk into an Uzi-wielding, mind-laying uber ninja in snazzy pyjamas. Would Sir prefer the blue, red or black variety? It makes bugger all difference to how you play, but it's nice to have the option, I suppose. Adding to the overall arcade feel are some authentic scanlines and numerous other screen and colour options that you'll probably want to adjust before playing. For some reason the default colour scheme makes everyone look like a busload of sunburnt expats on their first week in Benidorm. I don't know if I really need to warn you at this point, but I will confirm that yes, this game is hard. There are 3 difficulty settings, and even the easiest will get you a katana through the skull every 20 seconds or so, if that, unless you're focused and your reactions are sharp. This is not the game to pick up when you're pulling a Garfield on a sofa, drunk and/or minutes away from falling asleep. The level design isn't always the most interesting. In fact, it's pretty crap in some areas, and there are some trial and error unfair deaths across every level, and yet the game maintains its addictive nature throughout. You'll want to improve your score in those bonus levels. You'll want to progress to see what kind of other bizarre creatures the game throws at you, and above all, you'll want to know if the final boss is Rod Stewart or Elton John. Thanks so much, as always, for watching today. Please feel free to tell everyone what action platformers you're playing in the comments below, and leave me a like if you wouldn't mind. I'll be back with more pixel art, platformers, beat 'em ups and much more very, very soon. But cheers for now.